The great hall of the Galactic Conclave had never been so full. Representatives from over 200 species filled the curved seats that rose toward the domed ceiling. Light from a dozen different suns filtered through the crystal walls, casting strange shadows across faces that had never evolved to smile. Ambassador Kethrix of the Vexery Dominion stood at the central platform. His scales shimmered under the lights as he raised his forearms for silence. The murmuring stopped. When a Vexery spoke in this hall, others listened. The Dominion controlled 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their word was law for 1,000 conquered worlds. Fellow members of the Conclave, Kethrix began, his voice carrying through the translation systems that hummed in every seat. I bring troubling news. The humans have colonized their 17th star system. A ripple of concern passed through the assembly. The Sharath delegation, their crystalline bodies catching the light, leaned forward. The insectoid Krell clicked their mandibles in agitation. Even the ancient Morvathi, who rarely showed interest in younger species, turned their enormous eyes toward the speaker. 17 systems in 200 years, Kethrix continued. When my ancestors were building their first starships, they managed 3 systems in twice that time. The Shirath took 4 centuries to reach their 5th colony. Yet these humans spread like a disease across the stars. Elder Yonith of the Shirath rose from her seat. Her voice was like wind chimes in a storm. That humans have respected all treaties. They have not entered claimed space. What crime have they committed? Kethrix smiled, though the expression held no warmth. The crime of potential elder. Today they have 17 worlds. In another century, they may have 50. In 1,000 years, how many? They breed faster than any species we have encountered. They adapt to environments that would kill most of us. They are not content to stay in one place and build slowly, as civilized species do. They hunger for more, always more. The conclave fell silent. Every species present remembered their own expansion, their own hunger. They had learned to control it, to build carefully and slowly. But the humans seemed different. The humans seemed dangerous. Fleet Commander Vorath watched from the military gallery above the main floor. He was old for a Vexery. His scales faded to a dull gray, but his mind remained sharp. He had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. He had burned cities and broken armies. The Dominion called him the Iron Hand, and he had earned that name through decades of blood and fire. He already knew what the conclave would decide. The speeches and debates were merely ceremony. The decision had been made in private meetings months ago. The humans would be contained, and Vorath would be the one to contain them. 3 days later, the vote was unanimous. Humanity would be ordered to abandon all colonies and return to their birth world. If they refused, force would be used. Vorath knew they would refuse. He was counting on it. The armada assembled in the Keth system, far from human sensors. 3,000 warships from 12 species gathered in the void between stars. The Vexery contributed their mighty dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying a continent with a single volley. The Sharath brought their void cutters, fast and deadly, designed to slice through enemy formations. The Krell provided their swarm carriers, each one housing 10,000 warriors bred for nothing but combat. Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's pride, and watched the fleet take shape around him. It was the largest military force assembled in 300 years. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Enough troops to occupy a dozen worlds. Against this force, Earth had perhaps 200 vessels. Vorath had studied the intelligence reports carefully. The human ships were fast and well armed for their size, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. This would not be a war. It would be a lesson. Fleet Commander, his second officer reported, all ships report ready. We await your order. Vorath took a deep breath. History would remember this moment, the day the galaxy dealt with the human problem once and for all. Initiate jump sequence. All ships prepare for immediate combat upon arrival. The armada vanished into hyperspace, 3,000 points of light winking out as one. They emerged in perfect formation around Earth. The planet hung before them like a blue and green jewel, beautiful and fragile. Vorath had seen many worlds, but he admitted this one had a certain appeal. It was a shame what would happen to it. His sensors showed the human defense fleet immediately, just under 200 ships, exactly as the intelligence had predicted. They held position in low orbit, making no move toward the armada. Vorath allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They were frozen with fear. Good, open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Fleet Commander. Vorath straightened his uniform and spoke in his most commanding voice. People of Earth, I am Fleet Commander Vorath of the Galactic Conclave. You are surrounded by 3,000 warships from 12 species. You have no hope of military victory. The Conclave demands your immediate and unconditional surrender. You will abandon all colony worlds and confine yourselves to this single planet for the rest of your existence. You will dismantle your military fleet under our supervision. You will submit to Conclave authority in all matters. Resist, and your world will be reduced to ashes. You have 1 hour to respond. He cut the channel and waited. Around him, his bridge crew watched their stations with quiet confidence. This was routine. Every species reacted the same way when faced with overwhelming force. First denial, then anger, then finally acceptance. Vorath had seen it many times. The response came in less than 10 minutes. A simple audio transmission, no video, a single word in a human language that the translation systems rendered without emotion. No, Vorath blinked. He had expected pleading, he had expected negotiation, he had expected threats or defiance or at least some attempt at diplomacy. But this single word, spoken so calmly, caught him off guard. His second officer looked up from his station. Fleet Commander. Orders. Vorath recovered quickly. He had broken prouder species than this. They are bluffing. Increase sensor focus on their fleet. I want to know the moment they move. But the human fleet did not move. The ships remained in their positions, running lights blinking steadily, weapons powered down. They simply waited, as if the 3,000 warships surrounding their world were nothing more than interesting scenery. Hours passed. Vorath grew impatient. He had expected a quick surrender, followed by the satisfaction of occupation and pacification. This strange silence was unnerving his crew. Target their moon, he ordered finally. The research station on the northern hemisphere. One volley. The weapons officer hesitated for just a moment before obeying. A beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the Dominion's Pride. The lunar research station vanished in a flash of light and debris. A warning shot. A demonstration of power. Vorath waited for the humans to respond, to beg, to fight, to do something. Instead, another transmission came through, this time with video. A human woman appeared on the screen. She was old by their species standards, her hair gray, her face lined with age, but her eyes were calm and steady. She wore simple clothing with no military insignia. I am Secretary General Okonkwo of the United Earth Government, she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. You have destroyed our lunar research station. 47 scientists are dead. We note your action. Vorath leaned forward. Surrender now, and no more lives need be lost. The woman shook her head slowly. You have made your choice, Fleet Commander. We have made ours. What happens next is not war. It is consequence. Screen went dark. Vorath stared at the empty display for a long moment. Something about the woman's words bothered him. Not a threat, not a warning. A statement of fact, delivered without anger or fear. He pushed the feeling aside. He had a job to do. All ships tighten formation. Prepare for planetary bombardment. If they will not surrender, we will force their submission. The armada moved closer to Earth, a ring of death slowly constricting around a helpless world. That night, 3 Krell carriers on the outer edge of the formation went silent. The first report came at dawn, measured by the Dominion's Pride's internal clock. A Krell hive commander was screaming through the communications channel, his clicks and whistles barely translating into coherent speech. They are gone. All of them gone. 15,000 warriors. Vanished. Vorath sat up in his command chair, instantly alert. Explain. What do you mean vanished? The carriers. Fleet Commander. 3 of our swarm carriers on the outer formation. We received no distress calls, no weapons fire, nothing. When the morning shift tried to contact them, there was only silence. I sent boarding parties. The hive commander's voice cracked with something Vorath had never heard from a Krell before. Fear. The ships are intact, systems functioning, food still warm in the feeding holes. But every single Krell is gone. No bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle, just empty. Vorath's scales tightened against his body, an involuntary response to stress. That is impossible. 15,000 soldiers do not simply vanish. I know what I saw, Fleet Commander. I walked those corridors myself. They are gone. Vorath cut the channel and turned to his sensor officer. Full scan of the outer formation. Now the officer's fingers flew across her console. Confirmed, Fleet Commander. 3 Krell carriers showing minimal life signs. Power systems active, weapons functional, but crew complement reads as 0. She looked up, her face pale. 0 on all 3 ships. The humans must have boarded them, Vorath said. Some kind of stealth assault. Impossible, sir. Our sensors would have detected any ship large enough to carry boarding parties, and there are no signs of forced entry. No hull breaches, nothing. Vorath stood and walked to the main viewport. Earth hung before him, still beautiful, still silent. The human defense fleet remained in low orbit, unchanged from the day before. They had not moved a single ship. Send investigation teams to the Krell carriers, he ordered. Full forensic analysis. I want to know what happened. But the investigation revealed nothing. The ships were empty. The crews were gone. There was no evidence of any attack, no trace of any intruder. It was as if 15,000 Krell had simply ceased to exist. Vorath reported to the conclave that evening. The representatives were troubled but not alarmed. Equipment malfunction, they suggested. Desertion, perhaps. The Krell were known for their high loyalty, but perhaps the prospect of war had frightened some portion of them into fleeing. The Krell hive commander denied this furiously. His warriors did not flee. His warriors did not malfunction. His warriors were gone, and something had taken them. No one had a better explanation. So the armada continued its mission. The second disappearance happened 2 days later. A Shirath void cutter, one of their fastest and most advanced vessels, The ship had been patrolling the inner edge of the formation, keeping watch on the motionless human fleet. At precisely midnight, its communications stopped. Its beacon went silent. Its engine signature vanished from sensors. When rescue ships reached its last known position, they found the void cutter drifting, completely intact. The crew of 300 was gone. Their personal belongings remained in their quarters. Half-finished meals sat on tables in the dining area. Duty logs showed no unusual activity until the moment the crew simply stopped recording anything. Elder Yeltris of the Sharath came to Vorath personally. Her crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "This is not natural," she said. "The Shiroth do not disappear. We are bonded to our ships at a molecular level. If our crew had been killed, we would have felt it across the fleet. But we felt nothing. They simply stopped existing." "What are you suggesting?" Vorath asked. "I do not know, but I have studied humans for 50 years. Fleet Commander, they are not like other species. When cornered, they do not fight fair. They do not fight at all. Sometimes, they wait, they plan, and when they act, it is in ways their enemies never expected." Vorath dismissed her concerns. The humans were primitive. They had been in space for only a few centuries. The Vexari had been conquering worlds for millennia. Whatever tricks the humans might possess, they were no match for the collected might of the Conclave's armada. But the disappearances continued. A Morvathi observer ship went silent on the third night. 400 of the ancient scholars, gone without a trace. On the fourth night, the Vexari frigates on patrol duty vanished. On the fifth, a supply convoy of 12 ships was found drifting. Their cargo intact, their crews missing. Vorath could not hide the problem any longer. Fear spread through the armada like a disease. Crews refused to sleep. Officers demanded constant sensor sweeps. Rumors flew from ship to ship, each more terrible than the last. Some said the humans had created a weapon that could reach through walls and steal souls. Others claimed that Earth was haunted, defended by ghosts of the humans who had died in the ancient wars. Vorath knew this was nonsense. There had to be a rational explanation, but he could not find it. On the seventh day, he received a request from his science officer, a young Vexari named Koth. The officer had been analyzing every piece of data from the disappearances. He looked exhausted when he entered Vorath's quarters. "I have found a pattern," Koth said. "Not in the disappearances themselves, but in what happens before them." "Explain." "Every ship that vanished experienced a brief communication delay in the hours before. Barely noticeable. A few milliseconds of latency in their transmissions, as if something was listening, studying them. That proves nothing. No, Fleet Commander. But consider this. The human defense fleet has not moved since we arrived. Their weapons remain offline. They have not attempted any offensive action. Yet we have lost 400 ships and nearly 1 million personnel." Vorath's claws scraped against his desk. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that the humans are not defending themselves. Fleet Commander. They are doing something else. Something we do not understand." That night, Vorath ordered the entire armada to advance. He was tired of waiting, tired of fear, tired of mysteries. They would begin orbital bombardment at dawn. They would reduce Earth's cities to rubble until the humans begged for mercy. But as the armada moved closer to the planet, something changed. The human defense fleet, which had remained motionless for a full week, suddenly came alive. 200 ships broke formation and scattered in all directions, fleeing into the void at maximum speed. Vorath smiled for the first time in days. Finally, a reaction he understood, that humans were retreating. Their courage had broken. Let them run. They cannot escape us. Then, one by one, every light on every human ship went dark. Their engine signatures disappeared. Their beacons fell silent. They were gone, swallowed by the endless black of space. And then Earth itself went dark. Vorath stared at the viewscreen. The planet that had been alive with city lights and orbital platforms was now nothing but a black circle against the stars. No power signatures. No communications. No movement. It was as if the entire human species had simply switched off. "Full sensor scan," Vorath ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me what is happening." The sensor officer worked frantically at her console. When she looked up, her face was the color of old bone. "Nothing, Fleet Commander. The planet reads as dead. No power sources. No heat signatures. No life signs. 8 billion humans have simply stopped." Vorath felt something cold settle in his chest. It was a feeling he had not experienced in decades of war. For the first time in his long and bloody career, Fleet Commander Vorath was afraid. The armada hung in the darkness around a dead world. No one spoke. Every bridge, every command center, every crew quarters had fallen silent as the news spread. Earth had gone dark. 8 billion humans had vanished from their senses in an instant. Vorath stood at the viewport of the Dominion's Pride, staring at the black sphere that had been humanity's homeworld. His reflection stared back at him, a ghost in the glass. Behind him, his bridge crew waited for orders, but he had none to give. "Send scout ships," he said finally. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, tired, old. "I want eyes on the surface." 6 small Vexari scouts detached from the fleet and descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Vorath watched their sensor feeds on the main display. The ships entered the upper atmosphere, their cameras showing nothing but darkness and clouds. They dropped lower, through the cloud layer, toward the continents below. The first scout reached the eastern coast of what human maps called North America. Its cameras showed cities standing silent and empty, buildings intact, streets clean. But no lights, no movement, no people. It was as if everyone had simply walked away. Beginning detailed scan, the scout pilot reported, no life signs detected, no power signatures. Structural integrity of buildings appears norm. The transmission cut off. Scout 1 report. Vorath ordered, silence. Scout 1 respond immediately. Nothing. The scout's beacon had vanished from sensors. No explosion, no debris, no explanation. Just gone. Scout had descended over Europe. Its pilot, a veteran of 30 years, kept up a constant stream of commentary, as if his voice could ward off whatever had taken his colleague. Passing over the Alps. Cities below appear abandoned. No thermal signatures. Wait. I'm detecting something in the central plaza of a major city, some kind of structure that wasn't in our orbital maps. Moving to investigate, the feed showed a massive city square, dominated by an ancient cathedral. In the center of the square stood something new, a black pillar perhaps 50 meters tall, perfectly smooth, utterly dark. What is that? Vorath murmured. The scout moved closer. Its sensors tried to analyze the pillar but returned only errors. The material did not match any known substance. Its surface absorbed light rather than reflecting it. I'm reading some kind of energy field, the pilot reported, very faint, almost like Scout 2's signal died. One by one, the remaining scouts descended into Earth's atmosphere. One by one, their transmissions ended. No warnings, no final screams. They simply stopped existing. Vorath turned away from the display. His hands were shaking. He clasped them behind his back so his crew would not see. Recall all forces to defensive positions, he ordered. No ship enters Earth's atmosphere. No exceptions. The armada pulled back, forming a tighter ring around the dead planet. But the fear had taken root. Officers who had fought in a dozen wars now jumped at shadows. Crews who had faced death without flinching refused to be alone. The whispers spread from ship to ship, carried by the communications networks that linked the fleet together. The humans had done something, that humans had planned for this. The humans were not gone, they were waiting. On the 10th night, a Shirath commander named Yeltris requested a private audience with Vorath. She was old for her species, her crystalline body clouded with age, but her mind remained sharp. Vorath had known her for decades. She was not given to panic or speculation. I have a theory, she said when they were alone in his quarters. You will not like it. I have not liked anything about this mission since we arrived. Yeltris settled into a meditation pose, her crystals chiming softly as she moved. I have studied humans since they first developed faster-than-light travel. At first I dismissed them as you do, short-lived, emotional, primitive. But the more I learned, the more I came to understand something important, which is, humans do not think like us. They do not fight like us. When faced with overwhelming force, most species either surrender or throw themselves against their enemies in desperate battle. Humans do neither. They wait, they adapt. They find angles of attack that no one else would consider. Vorath made a dismissive gesture. Clever tactics cannot explain what is happening here. Ships do not simply vanish. Crews do not disappear without a trace. No, Yeltris agreed. Not by any technology we understand. But consider human history. Fleet commander, their world nearly killed them a dozen times over. Ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, wars that burned entire continents. Any other species would have been destroyed, but humans survived. Every time, they found a way. What does ancient history have to do with our situation? Yeltris leaned forward. I believe the humans anticipated this invasion. Not this specific fleet perhaps, but the inevitability that someone would eventually come to destroy them, and I believe they have spent centuries preparing for it. Preparing what? I do not know. But I know this. Every species that has underestimated humanity has regretted it. The humans do not see war as a contest of strength. They see it as a problem to be solved. And they have solved problems that would have defeated any of us. Vorath considered her words. Part of him wanted to reject them as paranoid fantasy, but he had seen too much in the past 10 days. Ships vanishing, crews disappearing, a planet going dark. None of it made sense by any rules of warfare he understood. What do you suggest? He asked. Withdraw. Purport to the conclave that the humans possess capabilities beyond our understanding. Recommend a diplomatic approach. The conclave will never accept that. They sent us here to solve the human problem, not to run away from it. Then we will die here, Yeltris said simply. Not in battle, not in glory. We will simply disappear, one ship at a time, until nothing remains. That night, Yeltris vanished from her quarters. A Shirath patrol found her cabin empty in the morning. Her personal belongings were untouched. Her meditation crystals still hummed with residual energy, but she was gone, as if she had never existed. On her desk, the patrol found a small object that did not belong to any Shirath. A carved piece of some dense material, vaguely humanoid in shape. The Vexry officers who examined it identified it as a game piece, used in a human strategy game called chess, that it was a pawn. Vorath held the piece in his hand, feeling its weight. Such a small thing. Such an obvious message: you are not the players. It seemed to say, you are the pieces, and the game has already begun. He placed the pawn on his desk and stared at it for a long time. Outside his viewport, Earth hung in darkness, silent and patient, waiting. Summon all fleet commanders to the Dominion's Pride, he said finally. We need to talk. But by the time the meeting was scheduled to begin, 3 more commander ships had gone silent. Their crews, like all the others, had vanished without explanation. The pawn sat on Vorath's desk, watching with empty eyes as the armada slowly died around it. 3 weeks had passed since the armada arrived at Earth. Of the 3,000 ships that had come to conquer humanity, fewer than 500 remained. The others had not been destroyed. They had simply emptied, one by one. Their crews vanishing into the void like morning mist burned away by the sun. Vorath barely slept now. He moved through the corridors of the Dominion's Pride like a ghost, checking on his remaining crew, watching the sensors, waiting for the end that he knew was coming. His scales had lost their luster. His eyes had sunk deep into his skull. He looked like a corpse that had forgotten to stop walking. The remaining fleet commanders had tried to flee. 12 ships had attempted to jump to hyperspace, hoping to escape whatever curse had fallen upon the armada. Their jump drives activated normally. Their ships vanished into the between space that connected the stars. But none of them emerged at their destinations. None of them emerged anywhere. The hyperspace corridors that had carried the fleet to Earth had become one-way passages. There was no escape. The Conclave sent increasingly desperate messages. They demanded updates, explanations, victories. Vorath had nothing to tell them. How could he explain that his fleet was being destroyed by an enemy that never appeared? That his soldiers were vanishing from locked rooms with guards at every door? That the humans had not fired a single shot? Yet the greatest armada in galactic history was slowly ceasing to exist. On the 22nd day, Vorath received a visitor. He was in his quarters, staring at the chess pawn that still sat on his desk. When his door chimed, he did not bother to answer. His guards would handle any disturbance, but the door opened anyway, and a figure stepped inside. It was a human. Vorath reached for his sidearm, but his hand moved too slowly. The human raised no weapon, made no threatening gesture. He simply walked to the chair across from Vorath's desk and sat down, as casually as if he had been invited for a conversation. Good evening, Fleet Commander, the human said. His voice was calm and pleasant. My name is Thomas. I apologize for the intrusion, but I thought it was time we talked. Vorath's hand finally found his weapon, but he did not draw it. What was the point? His guards had not stopped this human. His locks had not held. His senses had detected nothing. If the humans wanted him dead, he would already be dead. How did you get on my ship? Vorath asked. Thomas smiled. It was a kind smile, the sort that a grandfather might give to a confused child. The same way my colleagues removed your crews. We have had a long time to prepare for this moment, Fleet Commander. Longer than you might think. What have you done with my soldiers? Where are the missing crews? They are alive, Thomas said. All of them. Every single one. We are not killers, Fleet Commander. Whatever your intelligence files may say about us, we learned long ago that killing only creates more enemies. We found a better way. Vorath leaned forward. Then explain. If you have not killed them, where are they? Thomas was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He looked old, even by human standards. His hair was white, his face lined with decades of life. But his eyes were sharp and clear, filled with an intelligence that Vorath found unsettling. 500 years ago, Thomas began, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We built weapons that could end our civilization in hours. We came within minutes of using them, but at the last moment, we stopped. We looked at what we had become and we were horrified. I know your history, Vorath interrupted. The Cold War, the nuclear standoffs. It proves nothing except that you are a violent species. Yes, we were violent, Thomas agreed. We were everything you fear. Aggressive, expansionist, dangerous, but we changed. Not because we became peaceful by nature, but because we understood that violence was a losing strategy. Every war we won created new enemies. Every enemy we destroyed was replaced by 2 more. We could not kill our way to safety. So you developed a new weapon, something that removes enemies without killing them. Thomas shook his head. Not a weapon, a philosophy, a technology that grew from that philosophy. We call it the quiet way. Explain. When someone threatens us, we do not fight them. We do not kill them. We remove them from the conflict entirely. We take them somewhere safe, somewhere peaceful. We adjust their memories so they no longer wish to fight. We give them new lives, new purposes, new reasons to live. They become farmers, teachers, artists. They raise families. They grow old, surrounded by love. They are happier than they ever were as soldiers. Vorath stared at the human. You are saying that my crews are not dead. You are saying they have been relocated, transformed. Yes, every Krell warrior, every Sharath pilot, every Vexry officer. They are alive on prepared colony worlds throughout the galaxy. Worlds we have been seeding for centuries, waiting for this day. They do not remember being soldiers. They do not remember this fleet. They remember only the peaceful lives we have given them. That is monstrous, Vorath whispered. Is it? Thomas asked. Where you could have killed them. We have the capability. Where you could have turned this fleet into expanding clouds of debris with weapons you cannot even imagine. But we chose mercy instead. We chose to give your soldiers something most of them never had, peace. Vorath stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You speak of mercy, but what you describe is a violation. You are erasing people, destroying their identities, making them into something they never chose to be. Thomas looked at him steadily. And what did the Conclave choose for humanity? Extinction. Confinement to a single world for the rest of our existence. Your soldiers came here to enslave us or destroy us. We simply refused to let that happen. Then why tell me this? Why reveal your secrets to an enemy? Thomas rose from his chair. He was shorter than Vorath, frailer, older, but something in his bearing made the fleet commander feel small. Because we want you to understand, Thomas said, this is not about revenge. It is not about teaching the galaxy a lesson through fear. We simply want to be left alone, and we have spent 5 centuries making certain that anyone who threatens us will never threaten anyone again. If you release my people, this will happen again. The Conclave will send another fleet, perhaps, but that fleet will meet the same fate, and so will the next and the next after that. Eventually, the galaxy will understand that we cannot be conquered, cannot be destroyed, cannot be threatened, and perhaps then, they will choose a different path. Thomas walked toward the door. He paused at the threshold and looked back. You have a choice, Fleet Commander. You can stay here and vanish like the rest of your fleet. Or you can return to the Conclave and tell them what happened here. Tell them the truth. Let them decide what it means. You would let me leave? We would. One ship, one commander, one witness. Someone needs to carry the message. Thomas smiled again. That same grandfather's smile, and then he was gone. The door closed behind him as if he had never been there. Vorath's guards rushed in moments later, confused and frightened, unable to explain how a human had walked past them without being seen. Vorath looked at the chess pawn on his desk. He picked it up and held it tight. He had a message to deliver. Vorath woke to silence. He was lying on the floor of his quarters, though he did not remember falling asleep. The lights were dim, the emergency systems casting a pale red glow across the room. He pushed himself up slowly, his old joints protesting, and looked around. The Dominion's pride was empty. He knew it before he checked. He could feel the absence, the hollow weight of a ship that should have held 800 crew members. He walked through the corridors anyway, checking every deck, every cabin, every duty station. He found meals left half-eaten. He found duty logs that ended mid. He found a child's toy in the family quarters, dropped on the floor as if its owner had simply vanished in the middle of play. 800 crew members, gone. But he remained. Vorath made his way to the bridge. The consoles still functioned, though some showed error messages from systems that no longer had operators. Through the viewport, he could see the remnants of the Armada, a handful of ships drifting without power, their running lights dark, their crews taken like all the others. Earth hung before him, no longer dark. The planet glowed with city lights again, with the warmth of billions of lives going about their daily routines. The human defense fleet had returned to its orbit, ships running with full power, as if the past 3 weeks had been nothing more than a momentary inconvenience. You kept your word, Vorath said to the empty bridge. One ship, one witness. He sat in his command chair and activated the communications array. The channel to the Conclave was still open, still waiting for his reports. He stared at the blinking indicator for a long time before he began to speak. This is Fleet Commander Vorath of the Dominion's Pride, sole surviving vessel of the Coalition Armada. I am transmitting my final report. He paused, gathering his thoughts. How did one explain the unexplainable? How did one describe a defeat so complete that it did not feel like defeat at all? The Armada no longer exists. 3,000 ships, 12 species, over 2 million personnel, all of them gone, not destroyed, gone. The humans have a technology or capability that we do not understand. They can remove people from existence without violence, without warning, without any defense that we could discover. He thought of Thomas, the old human who had sat across from him and explained the quiet way. He thought of the pawn on his desk, a piece in a game he had never known he was playing. The humans are not dead. They were never dead. They allowed us to surround their world. They allowed us to threaten them. And then they removed us, as easily as one might brush dust from a sleeve. I do not know how. I do not know why they spared me. But I know this. They could have destroyed us at any moment. They chose not to. Vorath leaned back in his chair. The weight of centuries seemed to press down on him. He had spent his life conquering, destroying, forcing submission through violence. And now he had met a species that had moved beyond such things. I recommend that the Conclave make no further hostile actions against humanity. They cannot be conquered. They cannot be threatened. They will simply remove any force sent against them, and the cycle will continue until there is no one left to send. That humans do not want war. They do not want revenge. They want to be left alone. He thought of the vanished crews, living new lives on distant worlds. Were they happy? Did they dream of the ships they once served on, the battles they once fought? Or had all of that been erased, leaving only peace behind? I do not know if what the humans did was merciful or monstrous. I do not know if our soldiers should be mourned or envied, but I know that they are alive, somewhere, and that is more than I can say for the enemies I have made over my long career. The transmission ended. Vorath sat in silence, watching Earth turn slowly beyond the viewport, the planet that should have been conquered, the species that should have been contained, the lesson that no one had expected to learn. His navigation console chimed. A course had been programmed without his input, a path back to Conclave space. The humans were sending him home. He did not resist. There was nothing left to resist with. The Dominion's pride turned slowly away from Earth and engaged its engines. As the planet shrank in the rear sensors, Vorath allowed himself one final look. The blue and green world, so small against the vastness of space, home to a species that had learned what the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. True strength was not the ability to destroy. True strength was the ability to choose not to. The journey home took 3 weeks. Vorath spent most of it in his quarters, staring at the chess pawn that still sat on his desk. He ate little, he slept less. His mind kept returning to the same questions, finding no answers. When he arrived at the Conclave homeworld, he was met not as a hero but as a curiosity, a sole survivor of a disaster that no one could explain. He gave his report to the assembled representatives, watching their faces shift from disbelief to fear, to something he had never seen in the halls of power before. Humility. The debates lasted for months. Some demanded new attacks, larger fleets, better weapons, but the wiser heads prevailed. If humanity could erase an armada of 3,000 ships without firing a shot, what chance did any force have? If they wanted revenge, they would have taken it already. The only sane response was the one the humans had asked for all along. Leave them alone. A treaty was drafted, the first true peace agreement between humanity and the Galactic Conclave. Not a document of conquest or submission, but a simple acknowledgement of boundaries. Human space was to be respected. Human colonies were to be left in peace. In return, humanity would remain within its own borders and trouble no one. Vorath was asked to sign as a witness. He held the stylus in his trembling hand and added his mark to the bottom of the document. Then he turned to Ambassador Kethrix, who had started this whole disaster with his speeches about human expansion. They could have killed us all, Vorath said quietly. Every ship, every soldier, every one of us. They had the power, but they chose mercy instead. Do you understand what that means? Kethrix shook his head. It means they are better than us, Vorath said. It means we sent 3,000 warships to threaten a species that had already evolved beyond the need for war, and instead of punishing us for our arrogance, they simply removed us from the game. Not in anger, not in hatred, in sorrow, perhaps, in disappointment that we had not yet learned what they already knew. He looked out the window of the conclave chamber, toward the distant stars where Earth lay hidden. They gave us a gift, Ambassador. They gave us a chance to grow up. I only hope we are wise enough to take it. The treaty was ratified, the boundaries were set, and for the first time in galactic history, a species was left alone not because it was weak, but because it was too strong to challenge. In the centuries that followed, no fleet ever threatened Earth again, not because the galaxy feared human weapons, not because they remembered the fate of the Coalition Armada, but because they had finally understood the truth that humanity had learned 500 years before. Peace was not the absence of the ability to fight, peace was the choice not to dot, and that choice, freely made, was worth more than all the victories in the universe.